This is Hannibal here from the HannibalTV.com with my weekly review of the points I find interesting in Dave Meltzer's famous Wrestling Observer newsletter. And there's a lot of news this week, so I'll jump right into it. Dominic DeNucci passed away yesterday. He was a major star in the 1960s and kept wrestling into the 80s, and I even believe he had a match in the 2000s. He was 89, and Piper is just joining me. She's able to open doors with her nose. WWE laid off a bunch of wrestlers on August 6th. Most of the wrestlers were not a surprise. They were all NXT talent. Apparently, according to Meltzer, the story behind it is even though they were NXT releases, it was Vince McMahon, Bruce Pritchard, and John Laurinaitis who were the ones that decided to cut them. And apparently, Triple H, Shawn Michaels didn't have any say in the cuts. They both run NXT, which has not been doing well lately. Apparently, in the past, Triple H had been untouchable. Obviously, he's Vince McMahon's son-in-law. But losing the Wednesday Night Wars to AEW badly gave him a lot of detractors in the company. And there's a lot of people that are against Triple H ultimately replacing Vince if Vince either dies or steps down, which I doubt he'll ever step down. But apparently NXT's lack of success lately has been ammunition for Triple H's detractors, as his vision failed to attract younger viewers to the NXT product. And most people thought it would be a given that WWE has huge financial backing and was the established company, that they would dominate the NXT versus AEW battle, but it ended up being AEW that dominated that battle. And apparently one of the things that the WWE people find is the issue with NXT is there's too many talent that have the indie look of about 5'8" skinny guys, when WWE wants NXT as more of a feeder system and would like more people in NXT that actually look like stars. I guess another issue with NXT is they haven't done any house shows since the pandemic ended, and there's no touring in the works right now, and there's many NXT names that don't even have any wrestling experience because they've been signed with no experience just for their look, or they were stars in other sports and they need to get experience, and apparently NXT hasn't been giving them that experience. It was all over the news last week that Gable Stevenson, the NCAA champion, Division I in wrestling, won the gold medal at the Olympics last week. There is talk that he could either go to WWE or UFC. Well, he could make more money faster if he was good at UFC. He could have a much longer career in WWE, according to Meltzer, because he could be protected there. Apparently, he's going to be brought to Las Vegas for SummerSlam weekend by WWE. And he has said that he would like Paul Heyman as his manager if he goes to WWE. Apparently, he received $250,000 from USA Wrestling for winning the Olympics. that's something that they certainly don't do in Canada. So congratulations to him. Adam Cole, the stereotypical 5'8" bad body NXT wrestler, is one guy that Vince McMahon wants to keep because I guess he's been wrestling without a contract and they don't want him to go to AEW because he's not under a contract anymore. Apparently he could just go, and they don't want that. There's been reports that he's been offered as much as $1 million a year to stay. They don't want him to go to AEW, but he definitely appeals to the AEW fans that are already watching it. So I don't think he would make a big difference, honestly, if he left. No fan like me is going to watch AEW to see Adam Cole. We're going to watch to see the Ric Flairs, and if they ever get Brock Lesnar, we'd watch for them, but not another stereotypical AEW NXT looking wrestler, which, by the way, there is pretty much, it's not a done deal or anything, but it's pretty much thought that Ric Flair will go to AEW whenever his no compete clause ends, and he has been teasing that he might actually wrestle again. As I take a sip of my pre-workout here, I'm going to the gym after this. Chelsea Green, who was injury prone and got released by WWE, said that WWE was attempting to trademark her real name, Chelsea Green. So she couldn't use it on the independents, but once she went public about the situation, they called her and said they were retracting their trademark application to trademark Chelsea Green. Because, of course, they are the WWE family, and when they fire you, they're going to try and even trademark your real name so you can't even use your real name on the independent scene, because they're great people that love you and will be there for you forever. Molly Holly has been working on the road as a producer for WWE's Raw brand. The Matman podcast reported that King of the Ring is going to be returning in October with a King of the Ring male and female winner. And the ultimate winners will be crowned at WWE's Saudi Arabia event on October 21st. So we can expect more female matches on that show where they're fully covered up, because they are way back in the times there in Saudi Arabia, where they'll still chemically castrate you if you're gay. And if you're female, you have to be covered up. Apparently, the September 10th Madison Square Garden show SmackDown taping for WWE has 6,800 tickets sold that were actually paid for right now. Raw this week did a 0.51 rating. AEW was down to a 0.35 rating this week after a couple of weeks in the fours. But of course, that was back to live crowds. People are going to check it out. Now it's back to normal, although I'm sure when Punk and Daniel Bryan appear, there will be another initial boost in the ratings. But I'm positive that that won't last either. I mean, I think Daniel Bryan's a really nice guy, but I find him a boring wrestler. And for CM Punk, I never found him entertaining. And his whole gimmick of being this fighter has now been killed after his UFC performances. So, while there will be an initial boost, I highly doubt it's going to last. NXT was up this week from a 0.1 to a 0.19 rating. SmackDown did a 0.61 rating last week. Apparently, AEW's September show in Newark has 11,035 tickets sold so far. Very good. And their September 22nd stadium show in the New York area has over 17,000 tickets sold. So they're doing a lot better than WWE is doing in that market. The Dynamite show in Houston next week isn't doing that great for tickets. They only have sold 3,246. That includes comps. Those are the number of tickets out. WWE recently had 14,496 in that same building, and UFC had a much larger crowd there this past weekend as well. The Dynamite show August 25th in Milwaukee has 3,279 tickets out between sold and comps. I don't know much about this Max Caster guy, but apparently he had a match on Dark. He has a rapper gimmick, and he said something that wasn't offensive to the in-audience fans. So AEW never edited it out, but then when it got on TV or when it got on their YouTube channel, some people took offense with some of the lines. So they have now sent him to sensitivity training because God forbid you offend anyone as a wrestler. Today's wrestling is very PC. So the whole fun of wrestling used to be it wasn't politically correct. Now today's wrestling is highly corporate and politically correct. One of the main reasons why it sucks. SmackDown last week in Tampa had 7,300 paid. The house show August 7th in Fort Myers, Florida, which was the WWE Super Show, did pretty good. 5,644 tickets sold for a house show. August 9th, the Raw in Orlando had 6,700 paid and 8,200 total in the building. NXT this week in Orlando only had 160 in the building. This week in Jacksonville, AEW's Dynamite and Elevation/Dark tapings did 4,900 paid with 5,200 in the building. As I've been reporting, New Japan Pro Wrestling is pretty much reaching an all-time popularity low lately. It's arguable that Noah probably has more momentum than New Japan. Their ticket sales in Garland, Texas, in the Dallas area, where they're running 2 nights in a row, are doing terrible. For September 25th, they've only sold 125 tickets. And for September 26th, they've only sold 82 tickets. So New Japan should totally revamp their product. There's too many little guys doing acrobatics, and I think there's way too much of that in wrestling in general these days. As far as the SWE Fury Company in Texas, I reported last week that apparently Lacey Von Erich owns the company now. The first event under Lacey's ownership last month in Lubbock, Texas, had 5 advertised wrestlers not appear. This included Lance Archer, Impact Women's Champion Deonna Purrazzo, Jacob Fatu, Crimson, and Enzo. Apparently Enzo actually flew into the town but had an issue with the office related to travel and then ended up leaving and appearing for Pele Pro Wrestling the same night, which was a 5-hour drive for him. Teddy Long is no longer with the company. He had been the television GM and one of the bookers. They also announced to the talent this week that they are discontinuing their television show, which for a period of time did air on this YouTube channel. Apparently, the television show is pretty much done. Eric Embry has been announced as the new booker for World Class Pro Wrestling, which has events coming up in Dallas, December 11th, and Wichita, Kansas on October 3rd. Doesn't appear like Selena De La Renta is going to WWE in the end. There had been some talk that she may have received a tryout back in June, but she made an announcement this week that she's going back to school. Brian Knobs, who I've done several interviews with on this channel, reported earlier he's been having stomach issues and will be doing an extended hospital stay due to those stomach issues. He did lose a lot of weight at one point in time, but he gained it all back. And, well, he does have a nice side to him. I can tell you that one of the reasons why he gained it back were his eating and drinking habits. In MMA news, Cyril Gagne is the new UFC interim heavyweight champion since Francis Ngannou is having some sort of pay-related disputes with UFC, as Piper wants to stand up and say hello again. He won the interim title at UFC 265 last weekend in Houston, Texas, before 16,604 fans at the Toyota Center, the same building that AEW has about 3,000 tickets sold for right now. The gate for UFC was 3,460,000, which is slightly lower than the gate they had at the same building back in May. But it appears May probably also did a better pay-per-view number. They haven't released their pay-per-view number yet, but the indications do not look like it was a big number, according to Meltzer. The prelims only did a 0.22 rating on TV. GSP said this week that he's not going to do a serious fight against a top opponent because he feels his best days are behind him. He said he'd be open to doing a fun fight like a boxing match or a grappling match that wouldn't affect his legacy as an MMA fighter. Triller has signed Anderson Silva versus Tito Ortiz in a boxing match for the undercard of the Oscar De La Hoya versus Vitor Belfort event on September 11th. The fight between Ortiz and Anderson is going to be at 195 pounds. Anderson Silva is the favorite in that. And Meltzer believes that this was a bad move for Triller because Silva and Ortiz both bombed in their last pay-per-view fights. It is true that Silva's recent boxing match did not do well, and both the Ortiz versus Del Rio pay-per-view and the Ortiz versus Lydell pay-per-view did not have good buy rates. And I can tell you, even from an interview standpoint, my shoot interview that I did with Ortiz a few years ago didn't get very good hits compared to what a star Tito is supposed to be. So who knows how it'll do, but good for them for getting the paydays out of it. Hello, Bob. Hello, Josh. Barbara, sorry to hear about Dominic. Joe says Piper knows when the camera's rolling. Richard brings up that it's Friday the 13th. Yes. Fun day. Maybe I should go to my grandmother's grave after the gym tonight and see if I can conjure anything up. Tom says WWE is going to become the land of the giants again, and he loves it. People can say what they want, but wrestling has always done better when there's been larger-than-life wrestlers. And the mainstream interest in wrestling right now is lower than ever. And there's more mini wrestlers and average-looking wrestlers and below-average-looking wrestlers than ever. How is Brian Knobb's health? I just said it. He's got stomach issues. Andrew, would I consider interviewing Alex Wright? Yes, I would. Ryan shouting out from San Diego. By the way, I will be in California covering the PCW Ultra event, October the 22nd, for all the California fans watching out there. And I haven't plugged this in this show yet. The big Great North Wrestling event coming up in Kingston on August 28th of this month. It's going to be the first arena pro wrestling event of any company in Ontario post-pandemic. More information is at thehannibaltv.com, and online tickets are at ticketweb.ca. That's going to be a great event. Ivan says, yes, we've reported this before. WWC is changing their name to Latin American Wrestling Entertainment. And nobody cares. That company is dead no matter what name is it under. Sadly, wrestling in Puerto Rico is not hot at all right now. Screaming Baboon says, Adam Cole looks like a 14-year-old boy. Imagine him in there with Harley Race. Yeah, it wouldn't be pretty. David, do I think Rockin' Robin knew Wendy Richter in WWE? I have no idea. That's before my time. Matt R. says Cole looks like a baby in there next to Cross. Rob Steele believes Rene Dupree will beat the Blood Hunter with help from Jeremy Prophet August 28th. Well, that remains to be seen. I know Blaze will be in the Blood Hunter's corner watching his back. As Jeff Hoover says, Great North Wrestling in Kingston is going to be awesome. It will, and I've said it before, Kingston's only 2 hours from Ottawa, 2 hours from Toronto. You can be home by midnight-ish if you go to this event. Starts at 7 p.m. It'll be over by 9:30-ish, 10 at the latest. It's well worth the trip. It's going to be a great night of action. I don't know if Adam Cole is Michael Cole's son. Gerardo believes WWE is ridiculous to try and trademark Chelsea's real name. Mike Piper was on here, and she's gone. She has other business to take care of. Bill, no, I'm not going to be signing autographs in Wichita. I'm going to be there helping with the recording of the event and doing backstage interviews. Pretty much the only events I will sign autographs for are Great North Wrestling events. I'm not a big autograph person. Ross does not believe height makes you a better performer. Makes you more larger than life, for sure. The whole fun of wrestling is it's supposed to be larger than life characters, or if you're small, you better be damn impressive at flips and dives and crazy stuff and still make it look realistic. You mentioned some of the best wrestlers ever in WWE were short. Rey Mysterio is the only short one that I would say was good. You could say Dynamite Kid was short, but he wasn't that short. and he was jacked, and he looked like a guy you didn't want to mess with. The guys you see in there today, your average person looks like they can beat up. I don't want to see average-looking people to below average-looking people like the big fat Keith Lee, even though he's decent height. Like, I want to see monsters. Is Tito Santana going to help his daughter get a WWE job? I'm pretty sure Tito Santana pretty much abandoned his daughter. He was not a good father to Jenny. Is he following her progress? It'll be interesting to see. I think she has potential. I'd like to see her in Great North Wrestling. Bill, yes, Matt Hardy is going to be wrestling Fuego del Sol in Wichita October 3rd. And yeah, he will be doing autographs. I should try and get Flair. He's way out of my budget. Way, way, way out of my budget. There's way better things I'd rather spend my money on, but like, I heard he was asking before he re-signed with WWE like $25,000 an appearance, which I'm not saying he's not worth, but like, I can't afford that. And our Canadian dollar is a lot weaker than an American dollar, so that would be over $30,000 Canadian. Dennis, very good point. I agree with you on this, that CM Punk was the Gilbert of the UFC. Lisa says Ross sucks lately. Jeff is in the New York area. Luce says the people that give Punk credit for trying sport late in the game. He made millions of dollars doing it, so good for him. But he was an embarrassment to professional wrestling. I can't believe with all the training he had, he did so bad. Sally says Flair is extremely difficult to get on shows and podcasts. I've also heard that too. Someone, Gerardo's attending the Milwaukee AEW show. Cool. Sam Lentz doesn't care how many tickets AEW sells. He still thinks they suck. Jeff says it's Chico Santana, not Tito Santana. Tom says that's because Flair doesn't belong on podcasts. He belongs in the ring. He will never retire. I hope he doesn't get it. I do believe he probably will go back and wrestle again. Wouldn't surprise me because he loves it so much. And it was WWE that made him do that retirement match against Shawn Michaels. He didn't necessarily want that. And he did wrestle for TNA after that. And most people would still want to watch Flair wrestle because it's been so long. But he did almost die a few years ago. And he is in his 70s. So I hope he doesn't get hurt. Buddy Small says, good luck with the upcoming events. Bill, I have no idea how much the Wichita event at the Cotillion has sold. I imagine it's going to do very well because World Class Pro Wrestling hasn't been there since the pandemic, and they always draw well there. And let's put up the poster for it, and I'm going to end it on this. They got the Sandman against the Blood Hunter. We got Matt Hardy, Stephan Bonner, UFC champion, Jacob Fatu. I mean, it's going to be a pretty good card for an independent wrestling show, so I think they're going to do just fine as far as ticket sales go.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Support us on patreon.com for $1.99 a month to watch